Hello Internet, I am the hero of Julios, once again with another One Piece chapter summary. This week's chapter is chapter 1032, Odin's Beloved Blade, which is an interesting title when you really think about it because Odin has two swords, Ame no Habakiri and Enma. So, what exactly does that mean by his beloved sword, and then the other one is just the other sword? Like, is it like Albert Einstein and his brother Craig? Only history will only remember one of you. Regardless, the art this week is a cute little artwork of Yamato and some black cats making a delivery. Again, it's another based in Japanese culture kind of pun, I guess, or not so much a pun, but maybe like a story. But regardless, let's get into the actual chapter itself. So the chapter starts with Marco and Izo flying towards the castle. Marco admitting that he is still in an injured state and that Izo, making him do all this stuff is, a little rude. But I guess Izo heard about a giant fiery monster and expressed concern, probably because he knows either about Kaido's weapons or because he knows that only Kandro could have made something of that scale. Regardless, the thing that interested me way more than that was that the two of them flew right past Big Mom, and her eyes are just glossed over white. Now, in the last chapter, she presented herself in her biggest form. She even used, her a piece of her own soul to gain extra power, and Prometheus and Hera and Napoleon are all souped up and they're ready to take on Kid and Law, but she seems so glazed over mentally that she's ignoring everything else. So that should be fun to see in a few chapters, or maybe even next chapter. But that's pretty much all we see about Big Mom and Kid and Law at the moment. After that, we get a full shot of Fuga, because we have Yamato, who is being followed by Apu, because Apu is still trying to convince her to help him either take down Kaido or at least form a defensive alliance. And then Drake, who is still chasing after Apu. And then Fuga, who is chasing after Yamato. So Yamato tells, Fuga, it's good to see you again, but we don't really have time for this. So maybe as a child, Yamato, had like a fondness for Fuga specifically, or like Fuga was the one that had to hold Yamato when Kaido was off doing other things. I don't know the exact reasoning here. There are some theories that the three numbers that we saw with Apu, Fuga being one of them, is actually the three samurais that took care of Yamato, taught her how to read and opened up the way for her to follow her dream of being Kozuki Odin. And that because of doing that, Kaido did the experiments on them to turn them into the numbers. And now they can only say Fuga. So, if that theory's true, that would explain why Fuga's very attached to Yamato. Maybe he's the one of the numbers that still has an inkling of sanity left? Because the other two didn't seem that excited to see her. It was specifically Fuga. Regardless, the thing I liked was Fuga is a centaur. And you know how big these guys are, so to see a centaur of that magnitude, I just thought it was funny. But the fun with Fuga doesn't stop there. We see a couple floors above, Brook and Robin jump, and they actually land on his hair with CP0 in hot pursuit. As we know, the masked members are the most powerful ones, or at least the most dangerous. And then they get engulfed in fire, because the big flaming apparition thing just shows up and just... Now, obviously, they're the top Cypher Pull agents. This doesn't stop them for very long, but it's enough for Robin and Brook, currently riding on Fuga, to get away. Which, this is another member of two members of the Straw Hat crew that Yamato will be interacting with. So, she's kind of just, making her way around and just running into the crew here and there. I still don't think she spent enough time to be, next Straw Hat material. If I were to put a vote on that, I would say Carrot right now, but that's just a personal opinion. Uh, Honestly, I feel like Jinbei is just a solid end to the Straw Hat crew, and I don't know, maybe I'll do a video. If you guys want to hear my thoughts on the next Straw Hat crew member, leave a comment down below. But in all seriousness, as the CP0 agents get up and they're about to pursue Nico Robin, a flash goes off, and Apu is there taking pictures of him with his little transponder snail because, well, Morgans will buy info like that. Oh, the world government's top agents are working together with Kaido in secret shady dealings. And of course, the CP0 agent sees him and says, well, you're dead. Finger pistols him right in the neck, and he falls down. I remember when I read that panel, I just sat there and I was like, wow, you know, the worst generation are supposed to all be these terrifying pirates, and one just gets, nah, of course he doesn't. So, as Apu goes down, CP0 turns and sees Drake. I really wish these CP0 guys had names, because it's just, you know, it's hard to keep saying CP0 over and over again. I would like a name on these guys. But anyways, Drake comes up to them, and it's very vague with the wording, but it's implied that CP0 knows that Drake is not a member of Kaido's crew, or not a member of, you know, the Marines outright, and maybe CP0 knows about Sword, and I still don't know if that's a bad thing or a good, like, if it's against CP0, who works for the world government, then Sword and CP0 not getting along is a good thing. Kobe is a member of Sword, so we know they have to be good guys, because it's Kobe. I would be very shocked to see if Oda threw a plot twist of, surprise, Eam is actually Kobe, and this has been Kobe's evil plan all along. It all started on Alvida's boat, and then Kobe decided to take over the world. So, whatever the reason, Drake and Apu have decided to team up, because as the CP0 agent is launching himself towards Drake, Apu gets a hit off, and the two of them engage with the two masked members. Now, I'm not really a power scaler, but these two guys are supposed to be around Luffy and Zoro's level, so this should be a good fight to watch. Maybe we'll see Apu and Drake's full potentials, and maybe we'll see their devil fruits are awakened. That's starting to become a new thing, you know. We saw Kid and Laws, you know, last chapter. So, maybe the chapter before. Yeah, I think it was the chapter before. So, but we've seen Kid and Laws are awakened. It's not out of the question for these awakenings to be kind of like allusions to next arc, where Luffy and potentially Robin and Brook learn how to awaken their devil fruits. And I stand by my decision. Chopper's monster point is the awakening, so... but take from that theory what you will. Finally, the most memeable part of this chapter, King and Zoro are fighting, and King, in his pterodon form, grabs the back of his head and pulls it back, and I will just leave the image here in the corner. This is, you know, the face. Put it with the list of all the other great faces, from Eneru screaming to Luffy, Kid, and Law scrunching their faces. This just goes on the list of faces that One Piece has. But he uses it to pull his head back and then launch it, kind of similar to the Gum Gum fruit, if I'm being honest, and tell Zoro this is how pterodons hunted their prey, because historical accuracy is, I mean, maybe paleontology just isn't a thing in the world of One Piece, because that sounds like the kind of conclusions mid-century people would come up with for hunting creatures and ancient bones and stuff like that. Regardless, as Zoro's fighting King, he does take note that he has armor-like, you know, skin. He has fire on his wings that don't seem to go away regardless of what form he's in. The wings on his back outside of pterodon form, they still flap, they still move, but he's never seen King take flight. That's something that interests me too, because we've seen the Birkins, we've seen Shandorians, we've seen the 3 sky races. We've seen them all with wings. We've never seen any of them use them, but we've also never seen them at the size and magnitude that Kings are. Kings actually look like functional wings, whereas, the Shandorians, theirs are kind of, well, tiny. I don't know what that's for. I don't know what that's about. But regardless, Zoro understands that until he understands King's racial abilities, he's not going to get an upper hand in this fight because King has info and knowledge is power. To make matters worse, as Zoro is on the ground after taking, a dodge from one of King's attacks, he starts hearing a shamisen play. And Enma starts acting up and starts yanking the haki out of Zoro, as, we saw way, way earlier. If you don't control Enma, Enma controls you. The way the chapter is titled sort of implies that Enma is Odin's beloved sword, which, again, kind of makes you wonder what Ame no Habakiri is to him. Is it just his good sword? Or is Enma the good sword? And, Ame no Habakiri is the one that Momonosuke was going to get. Like, it's just, the chapter title leads to a lot of impressions here. On the note of the shamisen, though, Orochi, chilling in the room with all the kabooms, he starts hearing the same shamisen, or what we can assume is the same shamisen. And as he peeks into the room next door, he sees Komurasaki, otherwise known as Hiyori. And she's there, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, is it really you?" And she's like, "Yes, it's really me. I love you, darling." And he starts coming closer to her. I have absolutely no clue. I mean, it could be her. I don't think she's much of a fighter, but maybe she's, maybe she's a distraction. Maybe she's a distraction from the real attack. Regardless, Hiyori did mention to Zoro that she was going to stay out of this because she didn't want any of the Scabbards or Momonosuke to see her before they actually defeat Kaido, because she didn't want to give them, I guess she didn't really want to give them, extra worry. As long as they all think she's dead, it's fine. We don't have to worry. We're fighting for the safety of Wano. We don't have to think, the princess is in danger on top of everything. But much like how Tama refused to stay home, I can see why Hiyori would be here too. So I'm hoping next chapter just immediately starts with an explanation, because that would be nice. Regardless, that is how the chapter ends. Zoro is losing his arm to Enma, and the rightful owner of Enma, or I guess because she gave it to him, Zoro is the rightful owner, but the previous owner of Enma is seen in the last chapter. Coincidence? I think not. So with that, we end the chapter. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because this one raised a few questions. We still don't know anything about King, and I would really like to know more about King. And I really want to see what Drake and Apu can do in a real fight, not just the little one-offs we've seen of them so far. Thank you for watching as always, though, and I will see you in the next video. This is the Hero of Julios, Xing out.